Because you just answered there that various bits would be dealt with and so forth, the most dangerous bit, which I believe should have been tackled first, is the hill. It's where the accidents were, it's where a double bend is, it's where ice forms. Yet you go and do other pieces that aren't so important on a straight piece of road in a much lesser hill. So I'm not sure why that was, but what I'd like to know, when specifically is the question of the hill going to be sorted out? When will that actually be done? Bearing in mind that we're just about to have another load of frosts over the next 10 days.
Okay, thanks. I mean, all these works I'm sure will help. It's all about throwing water in the right places. But specifically on the hill, let me take that away and I'll come back to you with a further answer. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next question tonight is from Jack Beresford and it's to Councillor David Lee. Would you like to come up and ask your question?
So I'm excited about the sort of proposal Matthews Green for a new community centre, but I just want to confirm, is it going to be open to people of varying kind of ethnic, religious and cultural backgrounds?
Thank you, Jack. To give you reassurance that all community facilities provided by the Council are done so in accordance with principles set out in the Shaping Our New Communities document. And that's whereby community facilities have been built on each of our strategic development locations. This new facility being built as part of the Matthews Green development will be available to everyone in the local community. And indeed, if you look at page 189 of tonight's agenda, you will see in the final paragraph, the first sentence, it states, as a publicly funded community space, this was from the King's Church submission, as a publicly funded community space, the community centre would be open to all. We would aim to be fully inclusive of all community groups. We would not seek to exclude or look to impose restrictions on individuals or groups permitted to book the space. And further clarification came from one of the church senior members when he responded to me and said, further to our telephone, dear David, further to our telephone conversation, I can confirm that under the Equalities Act 2010, we would have to hire the community centre to any group that wanted it. Right? So he has confirmed that, and this group is bringing great benefit to that area. They were the only ones who submitted a final bid, and they have actually, within the report, you will see that they have likened it to the FBC Centre, which is not branded as a church, it's a community centre which is used for church services on the Sundays. So it will be open to all.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Yeah. When will this be expected to open for Embrook residents?
Well, we need to agree it tonight, and again has to be through a planning application, because they are going to be putting in the region of £1 million of their own money to increase the size of that facility, which will be built as part of the development contribution. So in terms of when will it be open, I would love to say next Monday morning at 9 o'clock, but I think that might be a bit rash.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. We're now moving on to agenda item 96. It's the member question time. Just a reminder, there's 20 minutes for this and there's 8 questions. So I'm not sure if anyone can do the maths there. But, the first question tonight is from Imogen Shepherd Bay and is to...
Good evening, everybody. Who was this for? Keith, was it? Or yes, okay. Many residents live in areas which have weekday parking restrictions designed to deter commuters and shoppers from parking on residential streets. They'll be very surprised to be getting parking tickets on public holidays such as Boxing Day and New Year's Day when they're not working and have family visiting. Is it still really necessary to be issuing tickets on these days?
Thanks for your question, Imogen. When civil parking enforcement powers were introduced in October 2017, the previous police restrictions, including on bank holidays, were adopted by the Council. It is important to note that parking enforcement in this respect has not changed at all. The reason why many people believe this is the case is that the police, the former enforcement agency, due to other priorities, never carried out that enforcement. The Council is now in the process of reviewing the traffic orders across the 1800 plus roads we have to ensure they are still effective and relevant to the traffic management policy, but this is an extensive process and will not happen overnight. Whilst it is unfortunate that residents have been issued penalty notices since the Council took on CPE powers, parking restrictions are clearly advertised on the street and residents are expected to comply with these. If the signage is inaccurate or not clear, then they should use that if they decide to lodge an appeal to the independent assessors. Now, this point is very important, as there is now a process and the Council can't intervene on an individual's behalf, as they could in the past. Clearly, officers will do their level best to carry out the review process mentioned previously, but inevitably it's going to take time.
Do you have a supplementary?
Sure. How would one go about getting these things reviewed and getting them reviewed quickly? Because there are some areas, obviously, certain areas near the town when the shops were shut and they were getting parking tickets on Boxing Day and things like that. All of a sudden, which I appreciate that it probably was already there, but
The issue is one of fairness, because for the residents you're talking about, I can probably cite another 20, 30, 40 roads who will say exactly the same. And so therefore we need to do that in a very systematic, priority-based way, which means we can't actually, or we shouldn't, prioritise one road than another.
Thank you very much. Michael Furniture? Got a question for Richard Dolinsky.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My question is to Mr. Richard Dolinsky. Nice short question. Regarding the council housing list, please can you advise what has been the reduction in numbers with regard to Band A, which concerns the people with most need?
Thank you, Michael. Between January and December of 2017, we were able to rehouse 138 people from priority Band 1. People in Band 1 include those where we have accepted a homeless duty, those with urgent medical and social priority, and those who need to move due to reasons of regeneration of social housing. Although Band 1 remains at a constant level of between 70 and 80 applicants at any one time due to new households joining, people moving into the borough or people existing within the borough, activity in housing and rehousing people in urgent housing need progress as well, and those with priority are rehoused in a timely manner that reflects how urgent their housing need may be. For example, I met a young lady only last week. She came into Shoot End to collect her keys, and she was made homeless only 3.5 months ago.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you for that. I'm just really wondering what the future plans are to further reduce the council housing list. Thank you.
I mean, we're going to continue to work with our council-owned housing companies. We're going to deliver innovative solutions to meet the demand for housing. That's going to grow. And work with our housing association partners to deliver homes in strategic locations. And as such, I'm pleased to say that we're on target to provide around 500 new affordable homes this coming year, many of which will be social homes where the rent is capped at 60% of the market value.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that'll be used. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. The next question tonight is from Councillor Crystal and Councillor.
I'll ask a question standing in my name.
Thank you. The local authorities traffic orders bracket procedure bracket open bracket England and Wales close bracket regulations 1996 part 2 section 6 gives details. You did ask. Gives details of those that should be consulted. In this case, we should have been included. It says where the order relates to or appears to the order making authority to be likely to affect traffic on a road for which another authority is the highway authority or the traffic authority. Clearly, as you described this, As you described, this has had a direct impact on early wards in Rockingham Borough. Having searched our computer records, we do not have any record of any consultation with Pepper Lane. The officer in charge of parking has asked Reading Parking Services, who would be responsible for the work, to confirm if they did consult with us and request they provide a copy of the consultation and response if they did. I have not yet had a response.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Will you work with me to get this sorted for my residents in Hillside and across the rest of Early, whether that means increased parking restrictions or rolling back what Reading attempted to do on Pepper Lane?
When it comes to anything under our control, absolutely yes, we can work together. When it comes back to Reading Borough Council, those of us who tried to get the traffic lights removed up at Shinfield know what an uphill struggle that is.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jones, have you got a question for me tonight?
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Although Wokingham Borough is generally a safe place to live, there's been a spike in the number of burglaries recently. What can be done to reduce the number of burglaries in and around the borough, and particularly in Early and Lower Early?
Thank you very much indeed. The 1998 Crime and Disorder Act places a statutory duty on local authorities to work in partnership with the police, health bodies, probation and the fire service to reduce crime and disorder in their local areas. Much of this work is carried out through the Community Safety Partnership, a high-level body that takes a strategic approach to crime reduction by developing and implementing action plans, holding the police to account on performance, commissioning crime reduction-related services and operations based on intelligence. Working in this way has helped Wokingham achieve and maintain the lowest crime rates in the country. There has been a recent spike in residential burglary in the Thames Valley, and Wokingham Borough has been particularly affected. Currently, the increase is around 12%, which is the fourth highest increase in the area. To address this, the Council is working with the police to communicate crime prevention advice, enabling residents to better protect themselves against becoming victims, using any regulatory powers in particular to improve the security of flats, houses in multiple occupation, for example, making sure that lighting in communal areas meets the standards and supports the police in their investigations by sharing relevant information. Burglary reduction is a priority, and performance is monitored by the fortnightly police tasking meeting attended by the Community Safety Partnership Manager, as well as the bi-monthly Community Safety Partnership Board meeting. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Residents are particularly concerned about the spike in burglaries. Will you work with me to ensure that funds are available to erect new street lighting and trim hedgerows in urban areas such as Early and Lower Early, should the police feel that these measures would assist them with crime prevention? And as we're short of time tonight, a simple yes or no would be fine.
I'm not going to commit specific funds to this because I'm not sure that that is necessary to prevent this, but I think that we should go to the Community Safety Partnership and ask them what are the things that they deem is necessary for the prevention of these crimes. Like you have raised a specific case in your ward, I also have seen a specific rate increase in my area as well in my ward. And it's actually particularly in new housing, which is, I think, particularly odd. But I think one of the things that we need to concentrate on is people understanding how they can secure their own homes. I think we need to take precautions around alarms. People are deterred from breaking in when they see an alarm, when they see good locks on windows, when they see cameras. There's lots of different methods that people can ensure, and lots of them, hedge cutting is perhaps one of them, but that's not the only thing. And I think we can explore these things together. And some of it doesn't include council spending lots of money on it. So I'd like to have a discussion outside of this meeting about how we can tackle this.
Thank you very much.
The next question tonight is from Councillor Ian Pittock, and it's to Councillor Keeper.
Thank you. I will read it out because 2 words got transposed. So sorry about that. The Executive Member for Highways will be aware of the promised plan to build a cycleway down the 9-mile ride from Gorse Ride south to Park Lane, which has been delayed due to the necessary extra highways land to be added to the existing footway, which has been encroached upon by residents. And there is some reluctance to tackle these residents, despite this being in the interest of the wider community. Both students are already cycling along the footway. There is now a welcome plan to build new bus stops, shelters and a light-controlled pedestrian crossing at the entrance to California Country Park. There is highway-zoned grassland at this point, suitable for the eastbound shelter, and the bus stop itself could be placed a little further east so as not to cause a traffic issue at the entrance to California Country Park. Why, therefore, is it felt necessary to place both the bus stop and the shelter on the existing footway, so causing another obstruction in the way of building the cycleway? Adding to this the fact that you have not yet placed a marker down by writing to the offending residents. What message are you sending to the wider community?
Thank you, Councillor Pittock. You will recall that you were a participant in meetings with all councillors in April 2017, where this issue of cyclists and 9-mile ride was discussed at great length. At the end of that meeting, a proposal was put forward and accepted by Finchampton councillors to assist cyclists and wider access to the school. It was agreed the 9-mile ride route would be installed as a safe walking route to school, aligned to the Section 106 planning obligations of the new school, which were delivered on time and on budget. It was agreed that the California Park Greenway route, delivered in summer 2017, would be upgraded to provide lighting to assist users, including cyclists, to use this alternative off-road route. Cyclists, especially child cyclists, will always tell you, and their parents will tell you, that providing an off-road cycling route is infinitely safer than a route alongside a very, very busy main road, with many house access points crossing it. Councillor Simon Weeks has worked on behalf of residents to provide, to enable the provision of these much needed bus shelters and improved safer road crossing at this point. The proposed bus stops and crossing points with drop curbs on 9-mile ride near California Country Park have been carefully designed at locations where buses can access them safely, and they are accessible and convenient for those walking to access the bus service. Moving the bus stops as you propose would introduce road safety issues. The available highway width at the designed stop locations requires the shelters to be located on the footway, and I confirm the proposals comply with the nationally recognised inclusive mobility guidance for highway users, including vulnerable users. And I come back to the point that an off-road, a significantly off-road cycle route will always be far, far better than one is right next to a busy road.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes. Isn't the real truth that you do not intend dealing with highways encroachments, and the message to residents is to grow as much highways land as they possibly can?
No, the message isn't that. There is alternative work going across the whole borough, looking at that issue right across. But to bring that into the cyclist, I think, is inappropriate.
Thank you. The next question tonight is from Councillor Gary Perrin. Thank you.
I'd like to ask a question standing in my name, please.
Thank you. Stuart.
Thank you, Gary, for your question. The balances have reduced significantly since March 2017 as the result of sizable supplementary estimates approved in year, such as the work needed for the local plan updates and the in-year overspend in people services. Although £7 million is a safe balance, as evidenced by the budget risk analysis work, it is, however, on the low side of the safe range. Work will be undertaken throughout the year and next year to build the general reserves back up towards the previous levels by measures that contain within budgets and generating supplementary income sources.
Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, thank you, Julian. I mean, forgetting about our past Atlantic adventures, And not forgetting David Lee reminds us all the time about being the worst funded council in England. Can you assure me that, allowing for obviously some risk in investment, our resources are being put in the best possible way to get the best return for the council?
Absolutely, we analyse all our spend and that is in line with government within council policy.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Fruitbury, and it's for Councillor Keith Baker.
Good evening, Keith. This is a question, I won't read the whole thing out, but this is a question about how we came to advertise the variation in the car park charges 2 weeks before tonight's meeting when you were going to authorise doing it. And it's not a question about not wishing you to do it, but about process.
Thank you, Prue, for the question. Given the success of the Woodley car parking trial, I was keen to see other council residents benefit from the changes to the tariff regime, especially the suspension of evening and Sunday charges, as soon as possible. So we've tried to accelerate the programme for this approach to be rolled out borough-wide. Officers have completed the task of preparing a report for this executive in an extremely short period of time, almost unprecedented, to which I am very, very grateful to them, especially as there is a strong link between this trial and a further extension of the 3 after 3 offer. Unfortunately, this resulted in a premature advert being placed in this newspaper. Please accept my apology for any confusion that this has caused, but it has given us an insight of residents' views on this, which we are currently collating. The proposal will be considered by tonight's meeting of the Executive, and if approved, it will be advertised again for a minimum of 21 days before the tariff changes are implemented in accordance with the statutory procedure.
Do you want something?
I do. That advert 2 weeks ago was placed in the Bracknell and Wokingham Weekender newspaper, which is only read by a small section of the borough. Can you explain why you put it in that paper and not in the Wokingham paper, which is read across the whole borough and not just that one corner of it?
I can't, but I'll get the answer and get back to you.
Thank you very much indeed. And the last question is from Councillor John Halsall. I'd like to come and ask it, and again it's to Councillor Keith Baker. You've got about a minute and a half, so.
Right. Is it still on?
Yep.
Right. Could you take the question? Evening, by the way. Could you take the question in my name? Keith.
Thank you, John. If agreed by the Executive, the proposed changes to allow free evening and Sunday bank holiday charges will be implemented as soon as possible. There is a statutory minimum advertisement period of 21 days post the decision and calling period. The new charges will be put in place after this and are planned to commence on the 2nd of April 2018 for a one-year trial.
Can we now turn our attention to the project of the community transfer of the car park to the parish council, which has stalled? The parish council would continue to host recycling and other borough facilities, but it would enable the parish council to reopen the toilets, which he wants to do.
As you know, I'm recently in the post, but I'm absolutely willing to let's work together to see what's appropriate going forward.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you all for your questions this evening. Now on to item 97, it's the Housing Revenue Account Budget 2018 to 21, and I'm going to pass over to Julian McGee, some of the questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, it is as detailed in your agenda with one amendment, and that is the change to item 7, which should read sheltered room guest charges to increase from £9 to £9.50 per night, effective from April 2018. That reflects the changes across the other areas. Just to give you the highlight account, so we're looking at housing revenue budgets. Council house dwelling rents, in line with government policy, will reduce by 1%. Garage rents will increase by 3.6%. Shared equity by 3.85%. Tenant service charges set in line with estimated costs. And the Housing Major Repairs Capital Programme 2018 as scheduled in Appendix 4. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? No. Okay, thank you very much indeed. The recommendations are on the sheet that you've got before you this evening with the amendment to item 7. All those in favour of the recommendations as printed? Thank you very much, unanimous. The next item this evening is the capital programme and strategy on pages 45 to 74. And I'm going to hand over to Julian McGee for reference item.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, as detailed in your pack, the Executive are asked to recommend to the Council the following: that they approve the capital programme and strategy for 2018 to 21 in Appendix A, to note the draft vision for the capital investment over the next 10 years in Appendix B, and approve the developer contribution of Section 106 and SIL as set out in Appendix C. I'm happy to take any questions.
Is there any questions or queries? No? Okay. The recommendations are on page 45, 1 to 3. All of those in favour of the recommendations are set out in the agenda. Unanimous again. Thank you very much indeed. The next item tonight is the Treasury Management Strategy 2018 to 2019. It's on page 75 of your agenda. I'll hand over to Julian McGee, so I'm going to introduce this.
Thank you, Chairman. In line with previous years, there are 6 areas to this recommendation. The Executive asked to recommend to Council for the approval of the following: the capital prudential indicators for 2018-19, the borrowing strategy for 2018-19, the annual investment strategy for 2018-19, the flexible use for capital receipt strategy, the MRP policy, and the Treasury indicators limits on borrowing activity for 2018-19. Again, happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions or queries? No. Okay. As laid out by Julian, the recommendations are on page 75 of your agenda, items 1 to 6. All those in favour of the recommendations? Unanimous. Thanks very much indeed. The next item on the agenda is the medium-term financial plan revenue budget submission. The medium-term financial plan 2018 to 21 and the revenue budget submission 2018 to 19, and it's page 119 on the agenda. Julian.
Thank you, Chairman. And again, the Executive are asked to recommend to Council the medium-term financial plan as detailed for 2018 to 21, and the budget submissions for 18-19 be approved. But again, happy to take any questions.
Do you have any questions or queries on this? Okay, so the recommendation is on page 119. It's that the Executive recommends to Council that the medium-term financial plan 2018 to 21 included in the budget submission for 2018 to 19 be approved. All those in favour? Unanimous. The next item tonight is agenda item 101. It's the shareholders report, and it's on page 127, and Julian's going to introduce this.
Thank you, Chairman. So the Executive are asked to note 2 items: the budget monitoring position for the month ending 31st of December 2017 and the operational update for the period to 31st of December 2017. We're happy to take any questions.
Councillor Lee.
Well, I don't really have a question, but I would just like to point out that on page 128, 129 and 130, it actually shows the result of this excellent investment programme that we've undertaken, with a forecast outcome from our housing company of 858,000. There's a small loss in the Logan Homes, it's up in Berry Group at 142, which, when you consider what you've just announced on the capital expenditure of £500 million, shows very clearly that we're operating as a very efficient organisation. And I'm delighted to see that we're now starting to generate the profits, which in the past we have been challenged on. But as everybody knows, housing companies only generate a profit when we've built a house and rented it. And we have some amazing houses that have been built. So it's not really a question, but have you any comments?
Well, naturally, I'm absolutely delighted and relieved, because I thought you were going to tell us we're the lowest funded authority again. But other than that, no, I completely agree with everything you say, David.
You have to wait for later.
Any other comments or questions? No. I think it's just worth congratulating everybody, because WHL have delivered over 120 affordable homes and nothing else. That's really noteworthy. The recommendations are on page 127. All of those in favour of the recommendations are set up. Unanimous. Thank you very much. agenda item 102, it's on page 137, it's the borough-wide parking charges. I'm going to hand over to Keith Baker.
Thank you, Chairman. There is an amendment. So where you see the 1st of April, that needs to be amended to the 2nd of April. And where you see the 31st of March, that is amended to the 2nd of April throughout. This is basically looking at the success of the Woodley car parking trial and bringing it into the remaining car parks except the 2 stations, the ones at Winnersh and Early. Wouldn't, they don't have 1 hour's payments there. Allied to the extra 10p on the 1 hour, the evening and Sunday charging will be suspended, which I'm sure a lot of residents will be buying extra beers on the back of that. As you will also see that we want to seamlessly go from closure of 3 after 3 to the introduction of this trial, which is why the dates are lined up for 3 after 3. Closing the trial will start. I do need to say a caveat that every area is different with a different profile. So just because it worked in Woodley, we cannot guarantee that it will work in Woking. We just need to be aware of that. But 12-month trial will be a very good period to assess that. I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lee.
Thank you. Can you just confirm, Keith, that it will be clearly advertised that this is the case? What was not proposed, so there's no confusion?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? No, I'm really pleased we're not starting it on April Fool's Day. That's a relief.
I weren't meant to realise that.
And also, I'm pleased that you emphasise that every area is different, and it may not work the same. For example, in Woking as it has in Woodley, it could be a regional success here, or it may not. So I think we all need to bear that in mind when we see the results in a year's time.
You raise a very, very interesting point, and I think it points to the one-size-fits-all doesn't work anymore across our major car parking areas. So the parking strategy that's due to come out around about May, I think needs to address some differentials, tailor the parking tariffs to the areas like Wokingham versus Woodley, etc.
Thank you very much indeed. Any other questions? No, okay, thank you. So the recommendations are set up on page 137 with the amendments as proposed by Councillor Baker. All of those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, the next item on the agenda tonight is the temporary closure of London Path 4, and it's on page 145 as set out. And I'm going to hand over to Councillor Norman Williamson.
Thank you very much. This is temporary closure of footpath during the set-up, breakdown and running of the Henley Festival, so that the footpath is taken away from the area that they use for that. So the recommendations for an order for the closure on those dates. Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah. Councillor Weeks.
My question was that we have this every year. Is there a possibility that, perhaps not for this one because the dates are very specific, but for future years it could perhaps cover a slightly longer period, perhaps for 2 years or 3 years when we pass this?
I think that's something that we should look into just to see if that's possible. I'm not sure if it's possible, but we'll look into it.
Councillor Baker.
As the person who brought this regular proposal to the executive a long time ago, I can tell you that actually it doesn't need to come to the executive, but because there was significant pushback from relatively large organisations like the Open Spaces Society, etc., it was felt at the time, as I said, it was probably about 10 years ago, that it would be appropriate to come here to have a public airing. But you actually don't need to bring it here. So I imagine you can. So it was also, probably you can do it for 3 years.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. No other question? No? Okay. So the recommendations are set out on pages 145, 2 recommendations. So all of those in favour of the recommendations? Thank you. Unanimous. Okay, the next agenda item is 104. It's on page 163. It's the SDL Community Facility, North Woking of Rose Green. And I'll hand over to Councillor David Lee.
Thank you. I'm delighted to bring this to the executive tonight. This is the King's Church, Wokingham, who were the people who have put forward their proposal to be the providers of the service in the community centre there. And not only that, but they have also committed to putting some nearly £1 billion of their own money into this to do the work, which if you look at on the back pages 203 forward, you will see their proposals for this. So on page 204 you can see there's a cafe there, there's a community hall, a nursery, a main hall, and indeed it will, just to allay any fears people have, on page 188, the fourth paragraph, it says, however, as with the FBC, the building will not be made to look or feel like a church, although it will be made clear that the centre is managed by King's Church, Wokingham. The FBC Centre, for those who have not visited, I would highly recommend that. That was undertaken and promoted by the Baptist Church in that area. It has a theatre, it has a children's centre, a library, a police station. It's got everything in there, and it's used for Sunday services. I am delighted to be bringing this. I would also just, there are questions sometimes raised about the safety of which are provided, and if you look on page 193, the penultimate paragraph says the proposed new areas will be fitted out to a good commercial standard to comply with health and safety legislation. So I would hope that we could all agree to the recommendations on page 163. But are there any questions?
Councillor Simon Weeks.
Yes, thank you, David. Just one comment and one question. The comment was obviously have some personal experience of similar such arrangement with the FBC Centre in Finchipster, which you previously mentioned, and that has been a great benefit to the Finchipster community, and I believe this would prove of equal benefit to the growing and emerging community here. The other question I just wanted to remind you to, on page 181, on the first page of their proposal, there was their comment at the bottom of the box that said, subject to contract and to approval by the planning committee of WBC to the modifications outlined. And I would just remind you that such a statement does not in any way predispose WBC as the planning authority to approve any such application. I'm sure if it's acceptable in planning terms it will be approved, but that cannot be linked to this at all, the actual approval of planning commission.
I'm sure that the planning committee will rise above all recommendations of this committee and will form their own opinion based upon the evidence presented to them on the evening. Thank you.
Councillor Baker.
I fully welcome this. Lots of large developments have fallen on the provision of community centres because they haven't been able to get people prepared to operate them. And the residents in those areas, be it a state of 1,000 or more, are going to be poorer for that. So I absolutely think this is great. There happens to be a faith group that's doing it, but it doesn't really matter. Someone is prepared to step up, work with us, and as you said, the Finchauster Baptist Church model is absolutely superb.
Well, with regards to that, if you look on page 186 and 187, I would just like to highlight this because I think our churches do a great service to this community. They provide a mum and toddler group. They support Soulscape. They run an open youth club on Friday nights. They link visiting scheme in through a vision of some of our church members. That's an ideal thing, getting volunteers to visit people who are stuck at home. They help with money management. and Woking and Reading Dyslexia Association. So I have absolutely no hesitation in recommending this for approval tonight, and I think it would do well if a lot of other people who always complain about things actually did what some of the churches in this borough are actively doing.
Thank you very much. Councillor
I mean, given that they are going to invest a fair amount of money in this centre and this 30-year lease, I just wonder, are we going to end up in a similar situation that we seem to with some scout huts and things like that, where people build things and then further down the line there's issues about leases and costs and so on?
Well, the only thing I would say is, having been a former scout leader at First Blues Hill, I think we built our hut ourselves, so we didn't have any problems. I think if anything, the council is currently charging for the rent. I don't know why that is, and I'm sure maybe somebody should look into it. But I think it's the organisation which I've ever seen that's started out with the sort of commitment that this organisation has, there's absolutely no problem. And even if it was, at the end of the day, any buildings on that land would revert back to the council, which is the law of the land. So I hope you're reassured.
Thank you very much indeed. I think this is a great investment in making this a truly sustainable community asset, and if it's half as successful as the FBC Centre, then it will be a great asset for that community and for others from the borough who will come to use it as well.
It will be twice as successful.
Well, I'm sure it will.
Bold statement.
Aspirational. So the recommendations are on page 163, two recommendations. All of those in favour as recommendations set out? Unanimous, thank you very much indeed. And the last agenda item tonight is agenda item 105, and it's the Woking Borough Schools admissions arrangements for 2019 to 2020. And I'm going to hand it over to Councillor Mark Ashman. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is, as you quite rightly pointed out, not for next financial year, but the one afterwards. These arrangements have been distilled over the past years with the intervention of the schools adjudicator only last year. And with that in mind, I've spared you the documents that you've already seen, but are referred to in the report. We've consulted, and you can see the few responses in the paper. And there are three variations that I'd like to highlight, and I highlighted in the recommendation, and that is the changes to the designated areas involving 4 schools, and that's Aldrington and Loddon and White Knights and Radstock, all primary schools. And there's also a tightening of the definition of residency. This is to stop an interesting term called gaming, which is where a short-term rent is sought to gain a catchment area advantage. The parent's choice is number 3 in the variation, which is a bit of a technicality, but if you're putting your youngster into preschool education, then you can choose whether you have full or part-time attendance. It's your choice in the reception classes. I think that's about it. I need to get this approved so that I can perform my statutory duty and get it to the DFE by the end of this month, please. Thank you.
Councillor Wilmington.
I'm pleased to see that we're tightening up the definition of residency, and that's the sort of thing that certainly gets people annoyed if they think that somebody's cheating the system and getting ahead of them in the queue, especially if it's I mean, most of our schools are very popular, very busy, so if people are jumping the queue, then we've got to make sure we stand on that. I think that the changes to designated areas affect the schools in early, and I would like to see that after we've run this for the first year, that we look at it again, just a review, just to make sure that things are working as we would expect them to. So it'd be useful, thank you.
Yes, okay, and adding to that, I think more information, I think we learned that we needed to inform more. I mean, all of those schools are really happy with the conclusion, but I do think that a review would be appropriate. Yes, thank you.
Councillor Danielsky.
If a family are called gaming and the child's already in place in the school, what actually happens to that child?
Do you know, I don't know. I've been asked that question before and I don't know, but I'll come back to you offline. And I do think now we've tightened up the criteria all round, we now need to know how we can police it, you know, make it effective. So I'll come back to you on that question, and we'll be on this journey, I think.
I think we're going to have parents coming forward and actually asking that question, so I think...
Okay, no, that's really good, and there'll be more questions, I know, yeah.
So stay in the school, the child stays in the school that they start.
Is that right? Okay. Beth knows.
As the chair of governors, I hope you do know that.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or queries? We do have a team that do investigations about those that are gaming the system, and I know, having had the portfolio for a while, there are a number of parents that report in other parents because obviously they feel that other people are keep-arching them and moving into an area temporarily through means that aren't correct in order to get a position in a school. And it is perceived to be a problem by certain parents in particular areas where school places are at more of a full capacity than in other areas. So I welcome these changes. I think it's very good. Right. The recommendations are on page 209. There are 3 recommendations. All those in favour, as set out in the report. Thank you very much. And that concludes the meeting. Thank you very much indeed.